cold open. We often speak of love as a gentle rain, a comforting warmth, a beacon of hope. But what if that beacon, so bright it blinds, is merely a sophisticated lure? What if the intense, almost overwhelming affection you receive, the sudden, profound connection, is not a gift from the heavens, but a meticulously crafted trap? Consider this: you meet someone. Or perhaps, someone finds you. They are utterly captivating, aren't they? They listen to your every word, reflect your deepest desires, shower you with compliments, gifts, unwavering attention. They tell you, in no uncertain terms, that you are special, unique, their soulmate, the one they've been waiting for all their life. It feels like a fairy tale, a dream come true, doesn't it? Every insecurity you ever held, every doubt about your worth, is dissolved in this intoxicating flood of adoration. They accelerate the relationship with an almost alarming speed, demanding commitment, envisioning a future together within days or weeks. You are swept off your feet, completely enveloped, utterly consumed. But then, a subtle shift. A flicker, a shadow. The adoration, once boundless, becomes conditional. The compliments, once freely given, now come with a cost. The future they so vividly painted begins to crumble, replaced by confusion, isolation, and a chilling sense of unease. You find yourself questioning your own reality, wondering what you did wrong to dim such a brilliant light. This, you see, is the insidious signature of love bombing. Not a genuine expression of affection, but a calculated, psychological tactic, designed to disarm, to control, to ultimately dismantle you. It is the beginning of a journey into a velvet cage, where the bars are woven from false promises and suffocating dependency. Introduction: in the intricate tapestry of human connection, love is often considered the most profound and sacred thread. Yet, beneath its radiant surface, darker currents can flow, currents that manipulate and exploit the very human desire for connection, for belonging, for being seen and cherished. Today, we delve into one such profound psychological phenomenon: love bombing. A term that, at first glance, sounds almost benign, even desirable. Who wouldn't want to be showered with love? But as we shall unravel, this intense display of affection is far from innocent. It is, in fact, a sophisticated, often unconscious, predatory strategy, wielded by individuals, groups, and even cults, to swiftly establish control and dependency. Love bombing is not mere infatuation, you see. It transcends the natural excitement of a new romance or friendship. It is an overwhelming, almost suffocating deluge of attention, admiration, and idealization, administered with such intensity and speed that it leaves the target disoriented, flattered, and deeply vulnerable. This tactic bypasses natural emotional defenses, creating an artificial intimacy and a powerful bond that, initially, feels exhilarating. But this exhilaration, this dizzying high, is precisely what makes it so dangerous. It's a psychological Trojan horse, if you will, disguised as affection, yet bearing within it the seeds of manipulation and eventual devastation. The impact of love bombing extends far beyond the initial euphoric phase. It lays the groundwork for subsequent cycles of abuse, gaslighting, and emotional torment. Victims often find themselves trapped, unable to reconcile the loving persona they first encountered with the cruel reality that eventually emerges. They cling to the memory of that initial intense adoration, hoping to reignite it, believing they can somehow return to that perfect beginning. And this is where the profound psychological damage truly begins. Understanding love bombing is not merely an academic exercise, it is a critical tool for self-preservation, for recognizing the subtle warning signs before the velvet cage clicks shut, forever altering the landscape of one's mind and spirit. We must understand the mechanisms at play, the psychological vulnerabilities it exploits, and the devastating consequences it leaves in its wake. MAIN content: to truly grasp the insidious nature of love bombing, we must dissect the psychological concepts that underpin its effectiveness. It is a multifaceted strategy, often employed by individuals with narcissistic, psychopathic, or borderline personality traits, though not exclusively. These individuals, often lacking genuine empathy and a stable sense of self, learn to mirror and project an idealized version of what they perceive their target desires, creating an illusion of profound connection. Concept 1. The illusion of idealization and the inevitable devaluation. The initial phase of love bombing is characterized by intense idealization. The manipulator places their target on an impossibly high pedestal, seeing them not as they truly are, but as a perfect, flawless entity designed solely for their own gratification. This isn't genuine admiration, it's a projection of the manipulator's own fantasies and needs onto the other person. They become the soulmate, the one and only, the missing piece. This tactic is often referred to as mirroring. The love bomber meticulously observes their target's hopes, dreams, fears, and insecurities, then reflects them back, creating an uncanny sense of understanding and connection. If you've always dreamed of traveling the world, they suddenly reveal they have the exact same wanderlust. If you value intellectual conversations, they become the most insightful conversationalist you've ever met. They become, in essence, a chameleon, perfectly adapting to your desires, a psychological echo chamber, affirming your every belief and validating your every aspiration. Dr. Sam Vaknin, a prominent scholar on narcissism, has extensively documented this cycle, highlighting how the narcissist's initial idealization is a direct reflection of their own grandiose self-image projected onto the target. Vaknin, 1999. For the target, this feels profoundly validating. After all, who wouldn't be drawn to someone who sees only the best in them, who makes them feel utterly special? This intense, rapid idealization creates an emotional high, a dependency on the manipulator for validation and self-worth. It's a powerful drug, swiftly administered, and incredibly addictive. Consider the case of Priya, a successful architect in her late 30s, who had always struggled with feeling truly appreciated in her past relationships. She met Rohan at a professional conference. Rohan was charming, articulate, and seemed to hang on her every word. Within days, he was sending her flowers at work, calling her multiple times a day, and planning elaborate dates. He'd tell her, "Priya, you're the most brilliant, beautiful, and compassionate woman I've ever met. I can't believe I found you. It's like destiny." He'd remember small details she'd casually mentioned, making her feel incredibly seen and understood. Within 3 weeks, he was talking about moving in together, marriage, and children. Priya, swept up in the whirlwind, felt a connection she had never experienced. She believed she had finally found her true partner, someone who genuinely understood her and valued her entirely. However, this idealization is fundamentally unsustainable, built on a fantasy rather than reality. The moment the target inevitably falls short of the manipulator's idealized projection, a moment that is always coming, because no human can be perfect, the devaluation begins. The pedestal collapses. The soulmate becomes flawed, irritating, demanding. The compliments cease, replaced by subtle criticisms, dismissive comments, or outright contempt. Rohan, for instance, after months of intense adoration, began to nitpick Priya's work, her clothes, even her choice of friends. "You used to be so confident, Priya. What happened?" he'd ask, subtly blaming her for the change in his perception. He would withdraw affection, leave her calls unanswered, and suddenly become unavailable, only to reappear later with a flimsy excuse, expecting immediate forgiveness. This abrupt shift from intense adoration to cold indifference, or even cruelty, leaves the target utterly disoriented, desperately trying to regain the love and approval they once so abundantly received. They internalize the blame, believing they must have done something wrong to cause this profound shift, rather than recognizing it as a predictable phase in the manipulator's cycle. The memory of the perfect initial phase becomes a tormenting ghost, driving them to chase a past that never truly existed. Concept 2. The power of intermittent reinforcement. Once the devaluation phase begins, the manipulator doesn't completely abandon the affection. Instead, they employ a highly potent psychological tactic, intermittent reinforcement. This concept, derived from B.F. Skinner's work on operant conditioning, Skinner, 1938, describes a schedule of reward where the positive reinforcement is not consistent but delivered unpredictably. Think of a slot machine, isn't it? You don't win every time, but the possibility of a win, however rare, keeps you pulling the lever. This unpredictable reward system is far more addictive and resistant to extinction than consistent reinforcement. In the context of love bombing, this translates to the manipulator occasionally, and seemingly at random, reverting to their initial charming, loving persona. After days or weeks of silent treatment, criticism, or outright emotional abuse, they might suddenly shower the target with affection, a lavish gift, or a heartfelt apology that seems utterly sincere. "I don't know what came over me, my love. I was so stressed. You mean everything to me, please forgive me," they might say, their eyes brimming with what appears to be genuine remorse. These moments of breadcrumb affection are incredibly powerful. They create a profound cognitive dissonance in the target's mind. How can someone so loving be so cruel? The target clings to these rare moments of kindness, interpreting them as proof that the real person, the loving person they first encountered is still there, just temporarily hidden by stress or external factors. They believe they can fix or earn back that initial love, becoming trapped in a cycle of chasing the fleeting high of the initial love bomb. Consider the ongoing struggles of Samir, a successful marketing executive who found himself in a relationship with Dia. Dia was a whirlwind of charm and passion initially, but soon descended into unpredictable outbursts and emotional blackmail. She would accuse Samir of infidelity, isolate him from his friends, and belittle his achievements. Then, just as Samir felt he couldn't take it anymore and was on the verge of leaving, Dia would suddenly transform. She'd plan a surprise romantic weekend getaway, cook his favorite meal, or write him a heartfelt letter expressing her profound love and regret. "You're my anchor, Samir," she'd whisper. "I can't imagine life without you. I promise to do better." These intense, albeit brief, returns to the love-bombing phase were incredibly confusing and addictive for Samir. He would forget the previous weeks of pain, convinced that this was the real Dia, and that his patience and love were finally paying off. He developed a deep-seated hope that with just a little more effort, a little more understanding, the good times would return permanently. This intermittent reinforcement kept Samir locked in a torturous cycle for years, perpetually chasing the ghost of the initial idealization, unable to break free from the intoxicating but ultimately destructive pattern. The occasional positive reinforcement, after periods of abuse, creates a powerful, almost chemical dependency, making it incredibly difficult for the victim to sever ties, even when the abuse becomes unbearable. Concept 3. The formation of trauma bonds. The combination of intense idealization, followed by devaluation and intermittent reinforcement, lays fertile ground for the formation of trauma bonds. A trauma bond is a powerful, dysfunctional attachment that develops between an abuser and their victim, characterized by cycles of abuse, intense passion, and reconciliation. It's a complex psychological phenomenon where the victim becomes deeply loyal to their abuser, often defending them and even internalizing the abuser's narrative. Psychologists Patrick Carnes and George K. Simon have explored the dynamics of trauma bonding, highlighting how it arises from a persistent pattern of alternating positive and negative experiences. Carnes, 1997, Simon, 2010. The brain, in an attempt to make sense of the chaos, creates a twisted form of attachment. The intense highs of the love-bombing phase, followed by the emotional lows of abuse, create a potent neurochemical cocktail. The anticipation of the good times returning releases dopamine, while the stress of the abuse releases cortisol. This roller coaster of emotions can become physiologically addictive. Imagine a child who experiences inconsistent parenting, moments of warmth and connection interspersed with neglect or harsh criticism. That child might develop an insecure attachment, constantly striving for the parent's approval, even if it's rarely given. A trauma bond operates similarly, but with a more intense, adult dynamic. The victim comes to associate the abuser, paradoxically, with both pain and comfort. The abuser becomes their entire world, their source of both agony and the fleeting promise of relief. This phenomenon shares similarities with Stockholm Syndrome, where hostages develop psychological bonds with their captors. The abuser, through love bombing, establishes themselves as the sole source of validation and affection, making the victim believe that nobody else could possibly understand or love them the way the abuser does. This belief, instilled during the initial love bombing phase and reinforced by subsequent intermittent affection, makes escape incredibly difficult. Take the example of Maya, a young artist who fell for her charismatic gallerist, Vikram. He praised her work incessantly, introduced her to influential figures, and declared her a genius. Soon, he became critical of her independent decisions, isolated her from her artist friends, and demanded complete control over her projects. If Maya resisted, he would lash out, threatening to ruin her career. Yet, after these episodes, he would embrace her tearfully, saying, "I'm only hard on you because I see your potential, Maya. We're a team, destined for greatness." He would then arrange a lavish exhibition for her, showering her with praise once more. Maya found herself in an agonizing push-pull. She knew Vikram was hurting her, yet she felt an unbreakable bond, a belief that he was the only one who truly understood her artistic vision, the only one who could make her famous. Her identity became inextricably linked to his approval, her sense of worth tied to his intermittent validation. Friends tried to intervene, but Maya would defend Vikram, explaining away his cruelty as passion or tough love. She was trauma-bonded, her loyalty to him so deeply ingrained that it overshadowed the clear evidence of his destructive behavior. The bond, forged in the fires of intense emotional highs and lows, becomes a psychological prison, making it extraordinarily challenging for the victim to perceive their situation objectively, let alone extract themselves from it. Concept 4. Cognitive dissonance and the erosion of reality. One of the most insidious consequences of love bombing is the profound cognitive dissonance it induces within the victim. Cognitive dissonance, a theory first proposed by Leon Festinger in 1957, describes the mental discomfort experienced by a person who holds two or more contradictory beliefs, ideas, or values. To alleviate this discomfort, individuals often change one of the conflicting cognitions, or rationalize their behavior, rather than confronting the uncomfortable truth. In the context of love bombing, the dissonance is stark. The person who claimed to love me so intensely, who promised me the world, is now treating me with such cruelty. How can these two realities coexist? The human mind struggles with this contradiction. To resolve it, the victim often resorts to self-blame and rationalization. Maybe I'm oversensitive, I must have provoked them, they had a bad day, they really do love me, it's just their trauma talking. They distort their perception of reality, minimize the abuse, and magnify the fleeting moments of kindness, all to maintain the illusion that the perfect person they first encountered still exists, and that the relationship is fundamentally good. The initial love bombing creates such a powerful positive impression that the victim finds it incredibly difficult to reconcile it with the subsequent abusive behavior. They invested so much hope, so much emotion, into that idealized vision, that to admit it was all a lie would be too devastating, too painful to confront. Consider the journey of Advat, a kind-hearted teacher, who was love-bombed by his partner, Reena. Reena was intensely affectionate, declared her undying love within weeks, and constantly praised Advat's compassion and patience. Later, however, she began to openly flirt with others, accuse Advat of being boring, and emotionally withdraw. Advat would feel a deep pang of hurt and confusion, yet he couldn't reconcile Reena's current dismissiveness with the woman who once said he was the most incredible man she'd ever known. He'd find himself making